Good evening. Welcome to the Township of Whitewater Region Regular Council meeting for Wednesday, September 7th, 2022 at 4:47 p.m. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We'll now move to the prayer. Almighty God, we give thanks for the great blessings which have been bestowed on Canada and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. Guide us in our deliberations of township councillors and strengthen us in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. Grant us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to preserve the blessings of this country for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Amen. Now we move on to number 3, disclosure of interest. Any interest from council members for this evening? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to item 4, public meetings. And our first public meeting is 4.1, and it's garbage fees. And it's Joseph Grunwald is going to take the stand. I do see he's there, so he has the floor for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to council. So Joseph, if you want to continue, please, and tell us your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for letting me address you on this matter. It's in regards to the garbage fees that were implemented a few years ago. For myself personally, in a way, it's a cottage that I own. I'm not a resident. It's not a curbside in our case to start out with. Since 1970, I've been taking my trash home all the time. I find the fee is an exorbitantly high fee to start out with. The property that I own, it represents almost a 7% increase. I've managed to get in a while back in 2000, a property from my uncle that I inherited represents almost a 10% increase. So I believe that my taxes are already covering garbage pickup whatsoever. For the summertime is the only time that we're there alternating weeks, with the exception of about 2 weeks in July, where I've always made use of the yellow bag. So some sort of an exemption amendment should be made for seasonal dwellers, in my opinion. I just find that we have no service from the township as far as the cottage goes. It's a private road. We can't haul the garbage out, which they want to bring out, say, the day of pickup. Well, we're not there for the day of pickup, so that doesn't help any. Bringing it home, as we always do, is what I'm doing. I find that right here in Ottawa, rural Ottawa, where I live right now, we have garbage pickup every 2 weeks. I mean, I'm not there to try and tell council how to make the money, but I mean, if there's some saving, if it's that high of a cost increase, I just find that it just doesn't make sense to me that it's that much of an increase with when the company went bankrupt. One of the other matters that was made in the letter, which never made sense to me, was that it was stated that people would take their trash to the dump site and it wouldn't get compacted. In the truck, it gets compacted. Well, I find it sort of strange that people would go and take their garbage to the dump site where they'd have to pay for it, and there's a bulldozer running over. I'm imagining it would be compacting it too. So I would appreciate if something could be done, an amendment for seasonal dwellers at the lake. Muskrat Lake, for instance, is where my cottage is. The second property I have, we try and see if we could rent it out for several weeks of the year, so to cover the costs. Nobody seems to be wanting to go with the zebra mussels and the blue-green algae and other lake pollution. We got 4th generation right now at the cottage. I'd love to see it stay that way, although it's becoming increasingly difficult more and more to try, especially when you have increases of this nature for the taxes. That's, on top, as I say, I already pay taxes, which presume that, that's what the only service I would have had that goes towards your garbage pickup. Now I'm being taxed, I'll call it a surtax because that's essentially what it is. So if something could be done or council be aware of it, maybe implement it every 2 weeks or instate the yellow bag, I'd be all set for that because I'd have I'm sure I wouldn't get I hardly get a bag of garbage every 2 weeks here most of the time. That's about all I have to say. So I don't want to take up more of your time. I certainly appreciate you listening to me. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillors, any questions? If the clerk can see hands, I can't.
I see none.
Okay, so Mr. Grunwald, what will happen now is we'll turn this back over to our staff to get back to us for their findings. The staff will have to investigate this. I don't know how deep or how depth it will be. It'll be at their discretion, and then it'll come back for discussion. So, seeing no other questions.
Actually, Mayor Moore, I think our treasurer
Yes.
might want to say something.
Okay, Sean, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just suggest that I'll take direction to, as part of the 2023 budget process, to provide council, if that's okay with council at this point, the comparators and options, because I know it has, when we first originally put the fee in place, that it would be discussed each budget year. So I would suggest that's what we can do at that point in time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I had brought up this point when it was first brought together, like for the seasonal people. And I think what the problem is to try and find out a fair way to do this, because I forget, now maybe Sean can tell me exactly how we did it. There's a certain, and if Councillor Jackson was here, she could tell me exactly the wording. They used something with the police.
Yeah, so the way that the properties that were identified that would have the curbside collection charge was based on impact data on what the property entailed. So if it had a residential unit or a commercial unit, based on the impacts property codes, those properties were subject to the curbside collection charge.
So much like Sean, I think maybe we could bring this up in the 2023 budget when the new council will set it, and maybe something that needs to be re-evaluated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from the other side of the table? I can't see it.
No, there's nothing.
Okay, so thank you, Joseph, for your presentation, and council looks forward to revisiting this in budget deliberations coming soon. Very soon, actually, November, December. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now our other public meeting is 4.2 zoning bylaw amendment. Now, Carmen, you want me to read the recommendation and go carry on from there?
Do you want to do your spew first? We'll pass it over to Ivan first.
Okay, we'll go to Ivan first, please.
Yeah, so I'll just read through that planner statement that I typically do for these public meetings. So if any person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Whitewater Region before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Under Section 3411 of the Planning Act, if council decides to refuse an application or refuses or neglects to make a decision on an application within 120 days, the applicant or Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. And lastly, under Section 3419 of the Planning Act, it states that not later than 20 days after giving of notice of the passing of a bylaw, the applicant, any person or public body who made oral submission or written submission prior to the decision of council may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. The address for the zoning amendment is 16 Main Street, Cobden. Will staff please give an overview of the application?
Yeah, thanks so much. So the present application is submitted in some sense on a formality of the owner. What the owner is seeking to do is change the zoning category from mixed commercial, MC is the suffix, to a residential 1 exception 10 zone. Essentially, what the owner is looking to do is refinance get some refinancing on the said property, but the mortgage provider that he deals with is having difficulty in doing so as a result of the current zoning being mixed use commercial, that commercial piece. So the proponent filed an application to rezone it to the residential 1 zone, and exception 10 is merely to recognize the smaller lot size. This is an existing lot of record that's probably existed since the village of Cobden was created, and it's a smaller lot size than what is typical or what is allowed in our zoning bylaw. So essentially, the approval of this will allow the proponent to borrow against the said lands, and essentially will not affect the current uses, which are residential of the concerned property. Just for clarity purposes here, all of the properties or most of the properties on Main Street are within this mixed use commercial zone. The purpose of that is to allow for commercial uses on the storefronts and in residential above or behind. So the zone recognizes the existing residential uses, the single family homes, but allows for commercial uses as well. Thanks so much. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, is there anyone willing to speak on this behalf?
No one in attendance.
No one in attendance? Okay, thank you. I understand no one is registered to speak and no comments were received. So the motion will be that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve.
Sorry, Mayor, can I interrupt real quick? I'm sorry. Do you want to ask if the council has any comments? Or maybe you did and I said no.
I thought we read the motion first and then we asked questions.
It's a public meeting, so you would discuss the agenda item first.
Okay. Any council members with questions? Councilor Mackay.
Yeah, he's...
Okay, I just wonder, is that the house with the big wooden scaffold at the front? No? But it's around there somewhere, isn't it? Two down, okay, sorry. Thanks.
Yeah, you're right area. Yeah. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. The motion is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve an amendment to the zoning category of the property known municipally as 16 Main Street from mixed-use commercial zone to residential 1, exception 10 zone. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Mackay and Reeve Rigier. All in favor? Carried, thank you. So ends our public meetings. Now we move on to announcements, please. Reeve Rigier.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. We just had at our county council meeting last Wednesday, we had the official opening of the Reconciliation Garden at the County Administration Building. And I would recommend if anyone is driving by to go in and see it and take a look at it. It is beautiful. And you can view it on YouTube if you want to see the actual opening itself. It was really, really touching and well done. And it's a beautiful piece that will be added on to the county building. It's outside, just at the main entrance there. So anyone driving by, take a look. And second, we celebrated CAO Paul Morrow's retirement at the county that afternoon as well. He had family and friends and former colleagues that gathered in the council chamber to wish him well and to send him off. CAOs also of the municipalities, and our own CAO Ivan joined along, so it was great to have him at the county building. So again, we wish Paul well. For those that aren't aware, Craig Kelly, who was the director of Development and Property, has moved into the CAO position, and Jason Davis has stepped into Craig Kelly's role as director. So anyway, lots of changes at the county and lots of things happening, but I did just want to pass that on. And if you want to view any of it on YouTube, it was really quite a great day. One of the best days I've ever been there in my 4 years. So it was a great send-off. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
If you, Neil Nicholson, if you want to come to our volunteer appreciation banquet, are you coming? Okay, you weren't here when I was talking about it. And are you going? Were you at the snack bar?
I was away that weekend. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're not invited, sorry.
I missed last year's, though.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nicholson. Hard to beat that.
No, I just would remind council and any members of the public that are watching this that for looking for information about the schedule for our seniors programming for the month of September, it's all available on Facebook under Whitewater Seniors. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I have none, but just to say for our public who may be watching, I'm not at the meeting tonight because I did test positive last Saturday for COVID. So erring on everyone's safety, I decided to stay at home. Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to 6.1. Land rental requirements. Recommendation that the Council of Township of Whitewater Region enact a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to enter in a land rental agreement to govern the use of the township billboard on a private property. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Mackay and Councillor Olmsted. This goes to Ivan, please.
Yeah, thanks so much. So this pertains to the existing billboard that's located to the north of the village of Cobden. It's on a property currently held by Lois McLeod. It's sort of a long-standing billboard within the township here. Essentially what we're looking to do is to provide consistent billboards or signage throughout the township, including our villages and facilities. And recently we had changed the billboard on the south side of Cobden in the sort of the Cobden Marsh. We did that last fall, and this would be the next phase to sort of that project. Within the report, in the attachment, there's a SketchUp or a rendering of what it would look like. The one thing to note is there are some symbols at the bottom, so we're going to not install those symbols and keep the messaging that's there. The messaging there now says shops and conveniences 1 kilometer ahead, so that'll just remain. It's a bit more clear when driving down the highway and looking at the sign, so that'll remain. We're just going to have a Discover Cobden, support local businesses at the top. So the agreement particularly relates to a 3-year term with automatic renewal for successive 2-year terms. The annual cost of the township is $700 a year, with the owner invoicing the township for that. So this agreement is consistent with the other billboards. One would be for Ray McLaughlin near Haley Station that we entered into last year with that property owner. So I'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any. Thanks so much.
Any questions? Councillor Olmsted.
Just a comment. The one on the east side of Cobden looks fantastic. Very noticeable when you're driving into town. And I've had a lot of people comment on it to me that they really like the look of the sign. So on behalf of local businesses, much appreciated.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Now we'll move on to 6.2, Rand subdivision draft approved. Recommendation of the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region to support the granting of the red lines revisions to the Rand subdivision draft approved plan of subdivision, subject to the modification note in this report, bracket county file 47T93005, bracket. Motion and a seconder, please. Rebrigier and Councillor Nicholson. Thank you. Back to Ivan, please.
Yeah, thanks so much. So this pertains to the lands within Wren subdivision that are currently not being developed. So as it stands today, BEI is currently working on phase 2 of 4 phases. So phase 1 was previously built. Phase 2 they're working on now, and phase 3 and 4 are to come. So this pertains to the lands as part of phase 3 and 4. So what happens as part of a plan of subdivision, there's 2 phases of approval. The first phase is what we call draft approval. So essentially what that is an approval in principle to the configuration of the lots, subject to a series of conditions. And then the second phase of approval is the subdivision agreement, which actually allows them to proceed with the development. So what they're seeking to do is make some minor modifications. They call them red line changes to what has been draft approved. So that was draft approved probably in the 90s. And what they're finding is there's some small lot line adjustments that will help with the developability of these lots. So they're not increasing the number of lots, nor are they decreasing the number of lots. They're just adjusting some property lines to make it better fit for their housing style. They're not changing the uses of these lots. They're all still going to be used for single-family homes, so they're all still individual lots for single units, but they're just making some minor changes. So when they file an application to make changes, it's an opportunity for the township to examine the conditions to see if we want to change them or add new conditions. And as part of the analysis, part of this report, there are 2 conditions that we are seeking to modify. One is condition 10, which speaks about interfering with drainage off-site. And in this case, we just want to highlight the McLeod drain. So I know Councillor Jackson is a big advocate of municipal drains, and we just want to highlight in this case that there's a McLeod drain there, and they're directing water to the McLeod drain. And number 15, condition 15, so it speaks about groundwater levels and all this stuff. So we just want to make sure that there's additional examination of the groundwater in that area, and that the engineers provide a clear recommendation as it pertains to how to develop houses when the groundwater level is a bit higher. So just a bit of clarification on that. So staff are supportive of the red line changes subject to those 2 conditions. What happens next is if council passes the motion, we would send it to the county and they would receive it, and then they would provide final approval for the red line changes. So they are the approval authority. We're just a commenting agency in this process. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Councillor Nicholson?
Thanks, Mayor. I have no questions to the 2 proposed amendments or the red line. It's a question pertaining to the time that the draft approval will exist for a subdivision. If you can clarify that, please, Ivan.
Yeah, so in the body of the report and the background, just not to point that out, but essentially, Wren subdivision was originally approved in 1994, and what happens with that is typically those approvals are for 3 years, and then you have to extend them annually. So council may recall back in 2019, maybe end 2020, we came to council with a report to extend the draft conditions for 1 year, for 1 year, for 1 year. Since we've passed the revised delegation of authority bylaw, that authority has been delegated to the planner or manager of community development to provide that 1 year extension. So just as a note for council and the public, we have provided the extension. It happens usually in the fall, and I've provided that letter to the county already as well. So we have to extend it every year for 1 year, essentially.
Perfect. And these amendments are only being able to made, you can't make those amendments on an annual renewal, only on the red line phase.
That's correct. So
Okay,
the developers kind of opened up an opportunity for comments and changes, and that's as a result of the red line changes, not the renewal.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yep.
So at some point, these red lines disappear. Would it be after the house is built and sold? Is that when they would all disappear?
Well, if the county approve the changes, the red line, the adjustments are made, and there's the old property lines will disappear. In fact, none of these property lines actually exist today. The next phase, the second phase of the approval, is what actually formally creates these lots. Thanks.
Yeah, we don't want this have to go back to council every year if they don't build for 5 years. Like, that's kind of silly, but it'd be nice to see them disappear as quickly as possible. Anyone else? Seeing none, Call for a vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.3, road assumption grant settlement. Recommendation that the council pass a bylaw to accept, assume, dedicated as public highway 6.3. Okay, let's start over. Recommendation that the council pass a bylaw to accept, assume, dedicate as a public highway, and name the lands described as Part 2 of Plan 49R-20-143. Motion and seconder, please. Councillor Olmsted, Councillor Mackay. Back to Ivan, please. Or Sean, where does this go? Ivan.
Yeah, I'll go ahead with it. So essentially, council will have seen a few of these at the last council meeting. Essentially, what they are is road widening. So what it is Wilson Ray has filed an application for a severance to create this new lot. One of the conditions is that we require that his surveyor confirm the width of the road, in which case for a local road, if it's not 20 meters wide, then a strip of land is transferred to the township for road widening purposes. It's an opportunity for us to get that land rather than expropriate it at a later date. So this is just a sort of a formality, if you will, just to accept. We'll receive by transfer the said strip of land, assume it, and make it form part of Grant Settlement Road. So the next steps here is if the bylaw is passed, we forward it to the applicant's lawyer, and they register that bylaw, and it register the transfer and the bylaw to finalize the transfer. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. 6.4, Employee Group Benefit Plan Manulife. Recommendation of the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the 2022-2023 renewal for the Employee Group Benefit Plan with Manulife for the term of October 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Mackay and Reeve Regier. This goes to Sean, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So every year about this time, our benefit package or our benefit contract renews. So the renewal is typically from October 1st of a year to September 30th. We went out for an RFP in 2018 and retained Pat St. Michael from Renfrew as our broker. So he negotiates on behalf of the municipality when Manulife comes out with their first, or other groups come out with their first renewal of our benefits. This year is seeing the negotiated rate that we've come to at this point in time is an overall increase of 3.3%. That represents 0.01% increase to the 2022 taxation levy. The increase for the year is $5,155. Basically, there's no change to life, accidental death and dismemberment, which is AD&D, and dependent life. There's a little increase in our LTD coverage. There's a 3.6% increase in extended health care, a 3.5% increase in dental. So it comes out to be a 3.3% increase. And at the time of renewal, there's 31, they call them lives that are insured. So with that, so I've asked Manulife, or I've asked Pat St. Michael to go back to Manulife and see if we can enter into an agreement to December 31st of next year to get our renewals onto a calendar year. They feel very confident they'll be able to do that, but he at the time of right now, he hasn't quite confirmed. The recommendation is to enter into an agreement until December 31st. If Manulife comes back and that's not possible, then we would just enter into an agreement until September 30th. So with that, I'll pass it back to the mayor if there's any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Reeve Regier.
Thank you. Just a question, Sean. Have we ever looked into the leg group to see if there would be any savings if we joined forces there, if there could be any savings at all?
Yeah,
Is
so
that possible?
the last time, it was a year or two ago, it wasn't a leg group, but it was the county working group, and there's a bunch of different municipalities along with the county. I think the Auto Valley Waste Recovery Centers in that group as well. So there's a big group of them that meet. I forget what they're called off the top of my head, but At that point in time, when there was compared apples to apples, so the type of benefits we have compared to there was no savings to be realized, I think, because we have at that time, we had a young workforce. So with these types of things, when you have a younger workforce or there's less claims, your premium, you're riding the wave on a lower premium. When you go to join a group like that, if their claim history is higher than ours, then we would get pulled up. Now, where we'll ride the roller coaster down is eventually someday down the line, we'll probably have an older workforce on average, and that's where we'll probably see our premiums go up, and then we maybe look to join them, but then we're not as attractive to join in those groups, so we our buy-in. So it has been looked at, but there wasn't savings at that time.
Great. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Councillor Nicholson.
Councillor Nicholson, please.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a question for staff on, with the increase, and I noticed the previous, we had waited 11 or 9 years, 12 years before we had done another RFP. What triggers us going back to the table for an RFP?
We should go back next year. The contract that the contract I believe that was entered into in 2018 was only for the services for 1 year, and then it wasn't RFP'd again. So at this point, this just happened to pop across my desk with the transition that we've had, and with the renewal date being so close, there's not enough time to RFP this year. But it's something that we'll look to likely RFP in 2023 for broker services, and to come to an agreement with how long those broker services will end, whether it's a 4-year contract or 3-year contract, so then we can go back and RFP again. But we want to make it attractive for the broker, that it's worth their time to have some sort of continuity. And then, so I would think it would be a 3 or 4 year agreement at that time. But I mean, to answer your question in short, there's nothing really that triggers it right now, other than we know we should RFP it next year, because it will be 5 years at that point in time. I think that's lots.
So I would just encourage, if there are, whether it's dollar value based or percentage increases on an annual basis based, like something should trigger us so that it doesn't get caught if it's not personality dependent. And that way we know we should go out and see if we can get a better deal. So,
yeah, for sure.
I'm good with the approach. I just wanted to make sure I understood the background. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Call for a vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 7, notice of motion. Please raise a hand if there is a notice of motion. Councillor Mackay.
We could look into natural ice in the Beachburg Rink because of all the other problems with the plant and the plant room, and maybe that would be a solution for this year. So we're going to ask the staff to look into that, see what that would cost. That's it. Does that sound good? All right.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin, did you have your hand up?
I did. I attended the Civitan meeting last night, and at the discussion came up the bass tournaments on Muskrat Lake. And I would like staff to check in or find a way to find out exactly how many tournaments there are on that lake and who organizes them and what is our revenue. Because that was asked to me and I went, I really can't answer that question. So I would like that brought forward somewhere in the near future, if we can find out who organizes them, how many tournaments are there, and what is our revenue.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Thank you. Item 8.1, adoption of minutes. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the regular and closed session minutes of August 17th, 2022, understanding that the closed session minutes remain confidential. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Mackay and Councillor Olmsted. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Now, 9.1, correspondence, Algonquin Trail relay from YouTube link. Very interesting. Everybody should give that a peruse. It was a job well done of the folks from that. It was, I did have the spike on my desk for this meeting and I don't know where it went. The gold spike was beside the clerk there somewhere. We do have it. We'll have to decide where we're going to put it and what we're going to do with it. Maybe put a plaque on the wall. I'm not sure what we should do with it. So it was a very warm, real sprayed gold. Yes. I'm not sure which bank it came from. So it's quite a video on there. It was nice to see. So please give it a look. And for folks at home, it's on YouTube and Algonquin Trail Town Relay. So maybe next meeting when we get together again, we can decide how we want to do that. The Golden Peg. Golden, yes. Okay. 9.2, Legion Golf Tournament. I had inquired with Treasurer Sean to see if I had money left in my account to sponsor, to be a sponsor for the Legion Tournament. So I'm asking if any other council members would like to sponsor. And if so, tell Sean before you leave tonight and Sean can facilitate that. It's their annual golf tournament. 9.3 was the Science and Technology Fair of Brentford County. That's strictly a budgetary item, so that can go in Sean's pocket too for the budget deliberations. Any questions on them? Okay, now we'll move on to bylaws. Carmen, they're all going as printed?
Yes.
Okay. Recommendation, be it resolved that the bylaws listed on September 7, 2022 agenda be taken as read and passed. Motion and a seconder, please. Reeve Regier and Councillor Mackay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Closed session none, so what is left is adjournment. So thank you all very much. I can't imagine 5:24 we are adjourning. Are you sure, Carmen, we didn't lose a page? And Ivan? Okay. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye.